On March 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar, the great Roman general, was assassinated and he had no heirs. So everybody, or a lot of people, I feel like, know who Julius Caesar is. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Julius Caesar was literally assassinated just 44 years before Jesus was born.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to...
For heaven's sake, Jenny won't let me do the intro anymore.
Never said that.
Okay.
I'm just the one that's like, let's
She
go.
really is. She just really goes from like, okay, everybody, we got to get going. Welcome back to
We're on the move.
For heaven's sake.
Get with
CJ's
it.
in this thing where he tells me I'm moving and grooving all the time. Look at him moving and grooving. Moving and grooving. Jenny's always moving and grooving.
Always.
This is episode 11, day 11.
Day 11.
Of our Advent series. And today we are talking about Augustus Caesar. So this is a little bit... I'm a nerd about some things, and I love Rome. And I remember in 6th grade I had a teacher who taught history, and we took early civilization to the Roman Empire, and her name was Miss Pinion, and I loved that class. Okay, I just love. And so
what was up with the whole like Roman Empire thing that was on social media for the last like 2 years? Like, this is my Roman Empire. What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about?
Do you? B said
No.
I
Okay.
don't know.
All right, continue.
Okay, but anyways, so this is just kind of a lot of fun facts about some like lining up in history, because there's a lot of historical figures that you will recognize as name that you don't typically tie to this point in time in scripture, but it is what's going on in the world. So I'm going to give you a little backstory on what's going on in Rome. On March 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar, the great Roman general, was assassinated by a group of conspirators that were politicians and his friends, or lack of a better term, he thought, at a Senate session, and he had no heirs. So everybody, or a lot of people, I feel like, know who Julius Caesar is. He's a kind of a household name, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that Julius Caesar was literally assassinated just 44 years before Jesus was born. And he had no heirs to give the Roman Republic to. So he had a will. He did have a son with a queen. However, he was not a Roman citizen, so he could not take the throne. So he wrote in his will that his nephew, his great nephew Octavian, would get the throne if he passed. Octavian later goes on to change his name to Augustus, and then later takes the surname of his great uncle, which is Caesar. So he is the Augustus Caesar that we all know in the Christmas story. Not know and love. I almost said know and love, but... So, and another fun fact, just tying all these characters together, this is really just one of those kind of glue episodes where I'm gluing some stuff to some things for you. Augustus Caesar was, like I already said, the nephew of Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar and one of Julius Caesar's assassins, one of his best friends, was Marc Antony. Marc Antony and Octavian, or Augustus Caesar Augustus, go on to be great allies to King Herod. So we're starting to see this like real pile up of history and biblical events take place. Well, naturally, after a leader is assassinated and a Senate does it, like leadership assassinates leadership, some chaos broke out in Rome. And Octavian does end up taking the throne, and he ends up taking the throne, and he's pretty cruel at the beginning. He was about 18 years old, and he was immature and not very good. He actually does end up, like, for argument's sake, not doing a horrible job. He takes not doing a horrible job in the sense that we're talking about Rome and the bad guy of the Bible, but he takes Rome from being a republic, which is where we get, like, our word Republican, our republic, like, they voted for their leaders. He takes it from the Roman Republic to what we know as the Roman Empire. So he's the man who takes it from a republic to an empire, and he becomes the emperor of Rome. And at this point in time, when Jesus is born, Caesar Augustus is kind of rocking and rolling. Like, everything's kind of going good. After a war broke out because Julius Caesar was assassinated, there was, like, civil issues. He's finally starting to kind of clean things up, and it started to kind of look up for Rome in a little bit. But, I mean, it's a dictatorship now, but they were kind of happy with it. So they start doing well, and the economy's doing very well. And so after this cleanup, this transition from republic to empire causes a need for a census. So this census is issued. He issues this decree for the census so that for two reasons. The first reason is obviously tax purposes. He wants to make sure he's making the money he's supposed to be making. And the second reason is so that he knows that there is military personnel per capita. He's got to make sure that the military, he has enough military. And so he issues this decree, and here's a really interesting fact. I looked at a bunch of sources, and they all say the same thing, that the fact that the Romans made it was a requirement for the citizens to go back to the origin of their families, which is why Joseph had to go to Bethlehem. But nobody knows why. There's a few guesses, but they're not really good. It's just a requirement that they added. I know why. Because God needed them to go back to Bethlehem. Prophecy, and like we already said, we're talking about all these moving parts in the world that were taking place. And this was just another piece of that puzzle. These parts are just moving towards what God needs them to do. And all these things are happening. And it's not by coincidence. He is paving a way for the Redeemer to come. The person we talked about in episode 2. The person who is the remedy to the issue is coming. And he is doing what he has to do to make sure that prophecy's being fulfilled. And it's crazy to see what we learn in like high school, really applying it to what's happening in the Bible, because the Rome that we know is like the Rome that crucified Jesus, it is very heavily that way because of Julius Caesar and his nephew, and Marc Antony being friends with Herod the Great, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the Herod the Great episode. But like, everything is the way that it is because God was helping it be the way that it was. And anyway, so it's just a lot of fun facts. I'm not going to go into it much deeper, but it's going to help you understand the Herod the Great episode. It helps you understand why that census was issued. And again, just rolling back to God's sovereignty and how he will use good or evil to execute his plan and will for the world. He just will. Especially when everybody's greater good is at stake for it. We all needed the remedy for sin. It was for all of us. It was what the world needed. And he was offering it, not just for the Jews, for the Romans too. Moving all those pieces and all those parts.
To get them where they had to be. Absolutely.
So that is it for this episode. But our next 3 episodes are going to be really good too. So make sure you come back tomorrow on
For Heaven's Sake. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.